What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Boiled Up with Rapheal Davis podcast, brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. This week, we're brought to you by AJ's Burgers, Beef, and Beer in West Lafayette. AJ's been known for serving the best burgers and Chicago-style favorites in West Lafayette since 2008. There's no better place in West Lafayette to catch a big game, enjoy some great food, and sip on some ice-cold beer after a game. I mean, when I was on campus, we go after a game, we go at midnight. It was usually open. It was one of my favorite places. Eric Hunter said recently it's one of his favorite places. Before you were there, Jerry. But no, joining us today is a very special guest, someone that I've recently come in contact with that I'm uberly just amazed with his work, and intrigued with hearing more about it. To me, someone that created exactly what I'm doing right now, kind of coming into basketball online, websites, stuff like that. A genius in the bracketology world, right? BCS, RPI, everything you know it. CBS's own Jerry Palm. How you doing, Jerry?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you joining us today.
It's great to be on. It's like I said, it's always good to talk to Purdue people. So this will be fun.
Yeah, this will be real fun. I just want to just kind of jump in because your world with basketball, I'm sure it's really affected, even through football recently with COVID. How has COVID kind of affected everything you've been doing?
Yeah, well, mostly it's affected all of the schedules that I try and track and keep track of. I mean, in football, we had a ton of postponed and canceled games. In basketball, we had as many as 300. I had a list of postponed games up to about 330. Maybe 10% of those eventually got made up and the rest just got canceled because they ran out of time. And it's created, some disparate schedules and number of games. Like I'm comparing a team like St. Louis, who's played 17 games, 18 games with teams that have 18 wins and have played 25 games. And it's really hard to make those comparisons. And the committee's going to have a hard time with that too, because, a team like St. Louis didn't get to really show what they're really capable of. They had a 34-day COVID pause in the middle of the season. And, it's really hard for a team like that to show what they can do. And it puts a lot of pressure on a team like that at this point of the season because they're running out of time to show what they can do.
No, that's true. And kind of like you just broke all of that down beautifully and how COVID is affecting the season. And before you even got to this point and being able to tracking games, like you said, speaking with the committee, being so deep into college basketball, I want to take a step back because I kind of gave people a little bit kind of a blurb, kind of what you do in your everyday. But how did you get to this point? I know you went to Purdue, but before that, what kind of led you to Purdue? What led you to joining the band at Purdue? Then what kind of ultimately got you into basketball?
Well, I'm about as born and bred a Boilermaker as you can find. I was born in Home Hospital in Lafayette. When 1963, when my parents were in school. And now they've torn Home Hospital down and they built a senior center there. So they're planning for my eventual return, apparently. But my dad and my mom would take me to Purdue games, one football game a year, one basketball game a year when I was growing up. Obviously, they're big Purdue fans too. And so I was excited about sports. I always have loved sports. Baseball was my first love. But always loved Purdue sports but when I was watching Purdue football, I was never going to be an athlete. I mean, I was built like the yard marker. I was never going to be able to play football. I was not a very good athlete, but I love sports. So, marching band, I loved the marching band. That was one of my favorite parts of the games when I was younger. And so when I eventually ended up at Purdue, and I was always going to go to Purdue as long as they were any good at what I wanted to study. And that ended up being computer science, and it's an elite computer science school. So it was perfect for me. And then I was able to get into the marching band and did 4 years with the marching band while I was in school. Almost all of my friends from Purdue are still people that I met in the marching band. So it was a big part of my life and just a fraternity of sorts. But it was really the way we got to blow off steam. One of the unique things about Purdue's marching band is there's no music majors. There's no music majors at Purdue at all. So we're all just a bunch of engineers and computer scientists and whatever, just having fun. And I think it shows in our performances that's what we do. And now the band is so much better than when I was in school. I'd be embarrassed to try out for the band now because they're fantastic. But that was a big part of my life. But then, I had a computer science degree. So I got a job doing programming. I worked for lawyers for about 8 years and bankers for about 9 years, and doing really what I like to do. It was great. But in 1994, the college basketball, the NCAA selection committee had at that time the RPI, and they changed the formula that year. And I had a new computer and a new database, and the internet was this brand new thing, and that the public was just getting into. So I thought, well, I'm going to teach myself all of this stuff, and by trying to recreate the RPI. And so I did. It was like January and February of 94, which was the big year for Purdue when they were a #1 seed with the Big Dog. And then, I started sharing the information. I had to go to the library and gather it because we didn't have like team websites where you could just get schedules. So so it was a very, very tedious process, but that's all right. So I shared it thinking that, nobody would care because it's a pretty geeky thing. And, that maybe enough people who would fit comfortably in my minivan would care, but it turned out more people than that cared. And so they were asking me to publish it in different ways and I couldn't. And then the next year, America Online, AOL, gave me a one-page website. So I had a place to publish it and people could look at it. And then the next year I created its own website, collegerpi.com. And that 1996 is kind of the miracle of my story. I'm probably still toiling in anonymity, if not for this. It's the 1 year in a generation that Penn State is good at basketball. And, if you follow, the Big Ten, that's true. Every 20 years, we get a good Penn State team. So this particular year, they're good. They got the Crispin brothers, and a guy who covers them found what I was trying to do. I was doing brackets then, and he called me, and we talked a lot, and he apparently liked me because he passed my name around in the Sports Writer Network. And within a couple of years, everybody covering college basketball knew who I was because I was the one resource for all of the numbers, not brackets. Joe Lenardi and I were both doing brackets at the time. But I was the only one who really understood the numbers behind it. And so, it just built. And then 98, they started the BCS for college football. And I could easily adapt what I was doing in basketball for football. So I started doing that. But at this time, all of this is just a hobby for me. I'm still working for, at that time, bankers. But in 2002, I got downsized by the bank. They moved my job to Charlotte. So apparently we got bought by one bank too many. And so I turned my hobby into a job. I started charging subscriptions. I got downsized March 1st. Oh, that's today. So the anniversary of me getting downsized 19 years ago. Anyways, I went to the Final Four that year. I talked to a bunch of sports writers to run this idea of changing my site from free to subscription, and they encouraged me. So then for a while, I was making my living doing college football and college basketball. I did more writing. I started doing a little bit of game coverage. I was doing some freelance work for USA Today and Sporting News and CBS back then. And then about 2011, so I'm almost 10 years into it, CBS essentially bought out my websites and took me on as a full-time freelance writer, and then eventually made me an employee. And I've been full-time with CBS now. This is my 11th year full-time with CBS. So, and that was an incredible blessing, getting to be with the company that holds the rights to the basketball tournament. And I've had so much access to games, not just NCAA tournament games, but any game I pretty much want to go to, I can go to. And it's been just this remarkable ride. And I would have never thought this kind of thing could happen when I was growing up. I would have never imagined it. I had a hobby I created into a job that combined all of my various passions, computers, sports, numbers, because I was always very good at that. And here I am. I mean, it's a weird story. And then, and then I'll get people ask me, it's like, well, how did you get into sports writing? How do I follow you in your footsteps? And I'm like, well, I don't really know that following in my footsteps is a thing. I just created something out of nothing, and it turned into a job. And I just kept walking through open doors. People would open a door for me, and I kept walking through. And I guess it just shows what can happen when you follow your passion. But I don't know. I know it doesn't always work out that way, but I got lucky.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense too, especially for like for me with my my camps and the non-profit foundation that we're building. something that I push really strong is that it's bigger than basketball. So like you said, for that kid who loves the sport, say maybe not in basketball, but loves the sport, wants to be in the sport, but maybe they realize I'm not going to be the player. But like for you, you followed the passion, you didn't give it up, and creating something of your own. I think that's something that a lot of. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say I've always been involved in sports at some level, right?
Yeah,
I've been
cool.
an umpire for baseball. I did 16 years of that. I did 8 years of basketball officiating. I coached my kids. I coached a lot of kids. Cool. I just couldn't play. I'm the worst hitter in the history of organized baseball who played for as long as I did, because most people would have had the sense to give it up. But I played 9 years, and the bat was heavier than me for pretty much all 9 of those years, which is probably why I couldn't hit. But I loved it. I was just, it's weird that I ended up at a job involving sports, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, because I played baseball for 1 year, and I probably was worse than you. It took me 1 year to figure that out.
You had the good sense to give it up. I didn't have the good sense to give it up.
I gave all my equipment away. It was over with. Like I think the one time I got on base was I think I got hit. It was I don't think I walked. I think every time I got to base, I struck out because I thought I was gonna be Superman. And I got hit once I got on base, and I tried to steal a base, and then I got out. I don't think I ever crossed I don't think I got to run the whole season. But no, your story, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of what I'm doing as well, because I played, but then I got hurt. I ruptured my disc in my back, and then I worked for Eli Lilly for 4 years. But there's I still want to be involved with the game somehow. It's kind of still following that passion, kind of building something now. But I want to go back, because you were at Purdue in times where I heard about just kind of, and I'm a Purdue. Before I was a Purdue player, I was a Purdue fan. And after I'm a Purdue player, I'm a Purdue fan. So I hear about the 80s. So that's Coach Katie. So what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 85. So my freshman year at Purdue was Coach Katie's sophomore year at Purdue. He had just come in the year before. So
right.
I was
and
there.
That was Roosevelt's senior year then, right?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How was that?
That was great. I mean, Gene was just starting to build something then. And we won the co-champion of the Big Ten in 84 with Illinois, who had this great team, and they were predicted to win. We were predicted 9th. Now, back then, it was still a 10-team league. And by the way, I'm in favor of going back to 10 anytime we want to do it. But I'm a curmudgeon that way. But we were picked 9th in that league. We had Ricky Hall, and Kurt Clausen was on that team, and Jim Rowinski ended up being the MVP of the league. And but that team was picked 9th and probably overrated because nobody was expecting anything of this team. And all of a sudden, they just get on a roll, and Rowinski's this force in the middle, and was really the first guy of the Muscle Beach guys that we had through the 80s and the 90s. Guys like Craig Riley and Steve Scheffler, and these just big, strong guys in the middle that really made other teams frustrated because nobody else had guys that big. But Jim Rowinski's the MVP of the league that year. We win the Big Ten championship. I would argue it's the single best single season coaching job anybody's ever done, because how that team ended up winning the Big Ten is still just mind-boggling to me. But
this
it was
is a team that came in 9th. This is a team that picked 9th,
and they won.
They won the Big Ten. Damn.
And they shared it with Illinois that year. And then of course we went out in the first round of the tournament because we shot like 20%. And I think that was the year we were at Memphis, and Keith Lee lit us up. And I think Katie said something after the game about how we couldn't shoot paper balls into a trash can that day. But it's funny. Gene was one of a kind. We don't have guys like that anymore, who would just say whatever's on their mind in a press conference. But when he first came to Purdue, the thing that really endeared him to Purdue fans is we go down to IU and we get beaten. Bobby Knight's working the refs, and they're lapping it up. The refs are at that one game, and Gene's just really mad. And he gets into the press conference after the game, and he says something like, "If you think I'm going to sit here and take that and put up with that for all of this, I'm not. You don't know me very well." And it's like, oh, we got someone who's going to stand up to Bob. All right.
That's dope.
And he did. And it's funny that they're friends now. I mean, it's kind of weird for probably both Purdue and Indiana fans that they're friends now. I guess when you're not beating each other's brains out anymore, then you have time to find out that you've probably got more in common than you have differences.
That's dope. And what was Mackey like in that time playing? I mean, just being.
It was loud.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it was loud. I mean, we didn't have a student section like we do now. You know, the paint crew and the gene pool before that. I totally would have been that guy. If I would have been like the president of whatever student section we had back then. But we didn't have that. Our seats were always in the top half of the arena, the upper deck of the arena, and kind of all the way around was essentially students. But yeah, that place was loud. It's better now. The crowd is better now, and I think the organized student sections really helps with that. But man, it's one of the loudest buildings I've ever been in for anything. You know, you get into buildings with bigger crowds, you know, like football stadiums, and obviously those are domes, but the intimacy of Mackey Arena makes it really difficult to hear when you're down on the floor. Sure. And I was lucky, I was never good enough to be in Boiler Brass, so I wasn't in the pep band. I just got to sit in the stands and yell my head off. And that was always the highlight. You know, I looked forward to basketball more than pretty much anything else, and marching band. In fact, I didn't say blew off, but my first physics test at Purdue my freshman year was the night of the Purdue Indiana home game. And so I asked the professor, I said, you know, do you know that this is the night of the Purdue Indiana home game? Because I'm an idiot freshman, right? And he just looks up in this big crowded room of freshmen and says, did you come here for an education or for basketball? And I'm thinking, well, you know, why not both? But so you know where the physics building is on campus. It's like 2 blocks from Mackey. So that night of the test, I got all dressed up in my gear for the game. I took the test in 20 minutes. I walked out, walked down the stairs. Everybody staring at me. Slammed the test on my desk, and I'm in Mackey Arena in time to boo Bobby Knight as he walks through the tunnel, which is really one of the highlights of the season. So yeah, that was beautiful. Super cool. So I guess that might not have been the something I would recommend to my children when they're in school. I tell them that story, and then I tell them that don't do that. It only worked for me because physics, the first part of the class was review because I had it in high school. But yeah, you know, the class got a lot harder after that. So you better show up and pay attention.
It's funny. And so like you said, you were there at the beginning of kind of Katie's career. And kind of what it led into from there, kind of after you left, like, because I remember I got here thinking of Grady's father, Greg Eifert. You think of Three Amigos, Big Dog, and all those
Kid
guys. Jones.
Yep.
Did you see that in Katie early? Did you see him building a program that will go on in the 90s, not only compete with Bob Knight, but win 3 in a row Big Ten championships?
I thought if we could get good enough players, yes. I thought if he could make a champion out of that 1984 team, we got better players, we could do a lot better than that. So, you know, it was really just a matter of getting players. And then, you know, we had Troy Todd and Everett. That was huge for this, the building of this program. And then you land the big dog. Conzo Martin was a fantastic player and a 3-time team captain. I think he was the first underclassman that Katie named a captain. He was a captain as a sophomore. Yeah, Matt Painter was on some of those teams, and he ends up being, both of those guys end up being really good coaches. So, you know, you can tell if Gene could get the right guys, and you had to get, and Matt has talked about this before too, you had to get guys that fit the culture that he wanted. And Matt made some mistakes early on where he was recruiting guys that were talented but didn't fit the culture. And Gene made those mistakes at one point as well, and then had to just go back to what, you know, makes Purdue basketball. And if you can recruit talented guys that want to play the way that Purdue plays and live the basketball player life at Purdue that you need to live, then you have a chance to be very successful. And we've seen that. We saw that with Gene, and we saw that we've seen that now with Matt, with the way that they've been able to build these programs and get some very talented kids. And now, you know, the future is really bright for the team that we put on the court this year. They're doing very well as it is. And you get everybody back next year, assuming everybody comes back, and the guys that are coming in, they have a chance to have a very special season next year.
No, yeah, that's true. From, like you said, from what it's built to what it's built to now, it's been crazy. And I got a question that kind of popped in my head as you were talking. And this may be, I don't know how you may think of this question, but in your eyes, I know I played, obviously, and I committed as a freshman. I was at Purdue. I've seen a lot of Purdue players come through. I get what you're saying about a Purdue guy, what a Purdue guy looks like, what a Purdue guy doesn't look like. But obviously, you've been watching Purdue longer than me. In your eyes, outside of locker room, when you think of Purdue basketball, even growing up, because it seems as though if you get the right Purdue guy now, he maybe could have played for Katie. You know what I mean? And the right guy to play for Katie could have played for Payne. So what is that Purdue guy in the eyes of, what would you say? What makes a guy a Purdue guy?
It's the hard work. It's the willingness to do what it takes to make yourself better. And also the willingness to perform in the role that the coaches are asking you to perform, even if it's not maybe what you exactly want, but you put the team before yourself. And if you put the team before yourself, ultimately yourself will blossom too. It's hard for 18-year-olds to understand that. But if you get guys that are willing to do that, willing to do the work to succeed, to improve themselves and to perform in the role the coaches ask them to perform in, then you've got a chance, first of all, to have really good team chemistry. But also when you include talented guys doing that, you have a chance to be a great team. And there's a lot to be said for learning those skills in college. When you get to the NBA, I mean, yeah, sure. The NBA has got teams and they're trying to win championships and there's teamwork and stuff involved there. But part of the reason why the NBA doesn't appeal to me as much is it's too much individual and not enough team.
Right.
And one of the things that really I like about Purdue basketball is individuals can shine. You can have Glenn Robinson, you can have Carson Edwards, you can have guys that really shine still within the concept of the team trying to succeed collectively toward a goal. And that's that to me is what really appeals for Purdue basketball.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me, and exactly how I think of it, because that's what happened even early in my career. We come off the baby boilers, DJ Bird. We don't have a bad year that year. We just have a bad non-conference. But that next year, our locker room just wasn't what it should have been, coming last in the Big Ten. Then Paint, in my head, Paint made a commitment to getting Purdue guys, because it felt like those 5 freshmen that came in, Jaquil, Isaac, Vince, PJ Dakota, I feel like they fit the mold. You know what I mean? They kind of brought us back. I know I get credit for it. I don't know why, but I feel like those 5 guys brought us back, and those 5 guys even taught our sophomores a little bit. Those 5 guys end up outworking and end up getting starting positions that year. So, it definitely shows that when you do come in, you do want to play hard. You do want to fit that mold. You do want to give it up yourself for the team, paying to play you. And that's kind of what this play you guys and put you on the floor. That's kind of what this team is now. It feels like, in my eyes, I'm not in the locker room, but I feel like this team really gels in the locker room. They get along. They really give themselves up for each other. And that's rare for a team so young to get it so early. But like you were saying, this team is good. Where do you see this team turning the corner going into March?
Well, I think they may have already turned a corner. Now you're getting the kind of production from Jaden Ivey that we might have seen a month ago if he doesn't hurt his knee early in the season, and so that set him back. But the thing about Ivey, and you see it, after every home game, he goes out and shoots for about an hour. This is a guy putting in the work, and he's a coach's son, and you can see that in his game too. And I think it's great. I think he's got a very high ceiling. We're just scratching the surface of what Jaden Ivey can do. But he's going to be the star on this team, maybe even next year, because you see it already at times, what he can, his athletic ability, once he starts getting more comfortable shooting, and when the game slows down for him, so that he's not thinking as much and reacting more to just what he sees, then he's going to be one of the best players in this league, maybe one of the best players in the country. He's got that level of talent. But then, the other guys, they're no slouches, right? Eric Hunter. Eric Hunter's one of those guys that we talk about. Eric Hunter comes into Purdue, I think the 3rd all-time leading scorer in Indiana high school history. This is a guy who can flat out light it up. And Pater wants him to play point and be more of a distributor and run the offense. And get some points when you can and be the best defender on the team. And so he's asking all of these other things of Eric Hunter, and Eric Hunter puts the scoring aside, because I think Eric Hunter could get 25 if he needed to get 25, right? He's capable of that.
I agree.
But that's not his role on the team. So his role is to facilitate for Travion and for, Brandon Newman and Jaden Ivey and whoever's on Sasha, whoever else is on the floor, and he does that and he gets his points when he can. And that, that's a team guy. That's a guy who said, all right, I'm going to do what you're asking me to do. It might not even be my strength, but I'll make it my strength. And we're going to win games this way. And that's, to me, Eric Hunter is I don't know if he's the captain of the team because I don't know who the captains are, but that's a guy who leads by example. And you can tell by the way he's taken on the role that he's been given and the way he's excelled at that role.
No, that's true. And I don't know if he's the captain. I call him the captain. So yeah, he's definitely, even the way he encourages the young guys. He may not be having the greatest game, but he encourages those young guys. He picks them up. Even the games where he wasn't playing, where he was hurt, he was watching film with the freshmen. I think it was Brandon and Mason. It's like 5 a.m. He's up watching film. And I know when I hurt my knee my senior year, I'm not watching film with Grady and Biggie and Klein 5 a.m. No, I'm not doing that. But no, it's great to kind of see this team. Like you said, Jaden was a guy that like I've said that too, that his injury kind of slowed down his progression a little bit, but now you're starting to see what maybe we would have saw if he didn't get hurt a little before this.
Right. And we shouldn't give up on Ethan Morton either, because this guy starts his career with mono, and mono wipes you out for longer than just how, before you can join practice again. It takes you a long time to get back into condition. And his whole freshman year has just been, it's been unfortunate because he's been so far behind. He hasn't been able to get on the court much. But I know Paint loves him, and and hopefully he gets that message, that there's a role for you on this team. You just gotta, you gotta be patient. You gotta get back into shape, and that there's a role for you on this team, because he could be really good. But who I really like among this freshman, I mean, I like all of them, but Mason Gillis has a knack for being in the right spot at the right time. If you need a rebound, you need a 3-pointer, you need 8 free throws at the end of the game, you need whatever it is that you need, Mason Gillis finds a way to get done, and especially late in games when Purdue's trying to close things out. He's got I don't know if it's instinct, IQ, dumb luck, what it is, but he's got a real knack for being in the right place at the right time and making the right play at the right time. Yeah, no.
And how big is it to have a guy like that, you whether be young or old, just a guy that can be in that position for a team to have success?
Yeah, I mean, they call them glue guys. I mean, he's definitely that guy. The Chris Kramer was like that. Brian Cardinal was like that. Every good team has got a guy like that, and Purdue's got a guy like that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Jared, going into March, obviously you've seen some March Madness. What's some March Madnesses that stick out to you? Wow. Or some games or times?
I was blessed to get to see Steph Curry in the regional in Detroit when they played Wisconsin and Kansas. And then I got to see Carson in Louisville last year when we played Tennessee and Virginia. Yes. Oh man, you should have seen me on the press. You not allowed to cheer on the press row. So I've got like duct tape around my mouth. I'm tied, my hands tied behind my back. I'm getting up during the timeouts to pace behind the press row because I can't get rid of my energy. It's sometimes hard being a Purdue fan on press row, but so I've got to see that. I got to go to the Final Four in San Antonio. This is one of my favorite stories. With the year that the 4 number 1 seeds were there, so it's like 2010. Kansas ends up winning, but Memphis had the game won late. And my job that year, I'm freelancing for a previous version of the CBS Sports Network. My job is to cover Memphis. So I'm sitting behind the Memphis bench, and I've got the Memphis crowd behind me. And Memphis is winning this game. They're going to win their first national championship, and they're feeling it, right? The bench is excited. The crowd's excited. And Kansas is trying to crawl back, and that Memphis team couldn't shoot a free throw to save their life. I had a better chance of making free throws from where I was sitting than Memphis did on the court. And they ended up, Mario Chalmers hits a 3 to tie the game to send it into overtime. And I heard so many swear words coming from the 5,000 Memphis fans behind me and the bench in front. I had no idea some of these were even swear words. I think that they were making some of them up. And it was like, if you're a Harry Potter fan, the game is now in overtime, and Kansas is starting to run away with it because they've given Memphis the gut punch they can't recover from, right? And it's like the mentors have entered the building, And if you're a Harry Potter fan, you know that they are how they just suck the life out of you. All of these Memphis fans have had the life suck out of them. And then, so the game's over and I go to the press conference and I'm walking out of the building and I'm feeling all of that. I'm wearing this cloak of despair that was surrounding me. And I'm thinking, I don't even really like Memphis that much. I got to shake this off. I should not be feeling this much of their pain. So that was but that was a very exciting championship game. I had great seats for Gordon Hayward's shot that almost beat Duke in Indianapolis. For Chris Jenkins' shot that won for Villanova. He goes running up into the stands to find his mom. It almost ran me over. Here's a Final Four story for you that has nothing to do with the game. The year that Kentucky was undefeated, Wisconsin beats them and is in the championship game. That year, Bo Ryan's coaching the team. His dad had passed away the previous year. So they come out of a timeout in the second half, and Jim Nantz is telling this very poignant story about how Bo used to come to the Final Four with his dad. His dad just passed away, and Roy Williams left his seat at the Final Four empty in honor of Bo's dad. That's a really nice story. So the camera pans around to show the seat that's left empty, and my fat head is in the way because my seat's in front of it. And so Jim Nantz, it's like 2 rows in front of me on press row, starts drawing telestrator arrows to the seat, which look like they're pointing to my ears. And I'm looking down and I have no idea what's going on. And so, I've totally ruined this very poignant story about Bo Ryan's dad by having my fat head in the way. And it's like, I saw Jim after the game, I said, you could have just told me, Jared, this would be a good time to go get a Diet Coke or something, come back with, but no, so now I need to get my kids to teach me Photoshop so I can put those arrows in other pictures of me, like maybe my wedding picture and stuff.
That is too funny. And after those moments, hopefully we can get you the moments this season. This will be a very unique tournament. I mean, being in the bubble, being in Indianapolis, all the games in the one city, one state, the Hoosier State at that. What kind of this crazy season? Gonzaga, Baylor kind of at the top. What do you expect? Michigan as of late. What are you expecting from this year? Do you think Michigan can win it all, or kind of?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they don't really have much of a weakness in their game.
Sure.
Baylor and Michigan both, 3-week COVID pauses, and you lose something out of that. I mean, we talked about that a little bit before. You're seeing it in Baylor. I mean, they come out of a COVID pause and they're playing Big 12 games where they've got like 7 top 25-ish teams, and they're one of them. And, they go to Kansas where they hardly ever win. They're 1-18 now after the loss over the weekend there. And, so they've got a tough time. Michigan comes out and they're playing at Wisconsin right away and came back in the second half to beat them. And yeah, those 3 teams, I'll take those 3 and I'll give you the field. Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan. I'm 75% convinced the champion is one of those 3 teams. Good luck picking one. You got a 1 in 3 chance. But it should be a fun tournament anyway. The tournament's always fun. You're still going to see upsets. I'm glad that they're going to have 25% capacity for fans. So for Mackey, that's 14,000. So 3,500 fans in Mackey. You can be plenty loud in Mackey with 3,500 people because you got that big metal roof and everything echoes. So, and Hinkle, great facilities to have this tournament in. So I think it should be good. It should be fun. Hopefully we don't have too many teams have to back out, especially in the middle of it. I don't think it's realistic to expect that the committee's going to announce a 68 team bracket with the 68 teams they really wanted and then have 67 games played with those teams. Yeah, that's just not the way this season has worked. So there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, but it'll be nice to see a champion get crowned.
Oh yeah, it's very like you said, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun, especially being able to have it in Indiana. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, me too.
Obviously being from Indiana is just a big deal. But Jerry, I got one question for you. And I know obviously it is not necessarily how to follow your path, but say there is someone who loves the sport of basketball. They want to become a writer. But they're not necessarily looking for a path to go. They just want to know what separates a good writer from, not necessarily good or bad, but a successful writer from a writer that really can never get off the ground.
I think it's you have to be diligent. You have to, when you're a reporter, you have to try and mine your sources. You have to build a network, not just of other sports writers, but of the people that you're covering without getting too close to them, right? They have to trust you so that you'll talk to them and so that you'll know, what really I can print and what I should just keep in my pocket for a while to, use to say maybe color a story at some point. But, you have to you have to be a really good people person. You have to be able to draw information out of people that may not be very willing to give it to you. And then you have to be thick skinned because, if you're covering a team or if you're covering even nationally, you're going to write stuff that people don't agree with, and they're going to be very happy to let you know that they don't agree with it. So, it's a job, especially if you write opinion pieces, it's a job where you are expected to be perfect and improve from there. And for me, that's every job I've ever had. I mean, I went from programming payroll to umpiring and basketball ref, and now I'm a sports writer. So, so
that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, but there'll be times it's like, why is my team seed so low? And you explain it to them and they don't like it. And they, they call you every name in the book. They write a few more names in the book. And, as long as it's not my wife, then I'm okay with it. She starts calling me that, I got a problem.
No doubt. No, that's been great advice. And just, I know at this point I have one question from Twitter.
Okay.
What goes into seeding? How does teams get seeded in the tournament?
Well, the same way they get selected. I mean, you have, your tournament resume, that basically it's every game you played and all the results, and they divide them into 4 quadrants, which the net is used to define those quadrants. So your better games are in quadrant 1. Your second best set of games is quadrant 2, and they're looking for quality wins. They're looking for the quality of your losses. They're looking for your strength of schedule, although it'll be a little bit less this year because schedules have been so truncated and varied by the pandemic that, especially your non-conference schedule. If you have a bad non-conference schedule, that can really work against you. And I think this year it's not going to work against you as much. There'll be more leeway given for that than they normally do. But a win away from home, because the tournament's not played on home floors. So that's the best thing that you can do for your tournament resume is beat a good team away from home. Neutral court's fine. So, the Big Ten tournament, that's great. That's a neutral court, or, truly on the road. So for, like at Purdue's resume, you're looking at 2 wins over Ohio State, home and road. That road win over Ohio State is one of the best wins anybody can get this season, because that's a top 5 team. And even if they end up a top 10 team, that's a fantastic win. And so, that helps, but then you don't want to take 3 stupid losses and give it away. Right. So they look for consistent excellence over the course of the season, which Purdue has done. Other than the loss to Miami early on, there's no black mark on this resume anywhere. And then so they're top half of the bracket team if they don't screw up here down the stretch. And I've got them as a 5 today. I don't know how comfortable I am with 5. It feels more like they should be a 6, but if they play well down the stretch, they can even move up from there.
Oh, nice. And that's good to hear as a Purdue fan. It's good to see Purdue fans, Purdue take, like you said, it felt like they've already taken that turn into March. Being that we're in March, being March Madness, I'm excited to be a part of this now, kind of in the media space, whether it be just podcasting or not, just covering it a little bit. I'm very, very excited to see what happens this year. But like you said, it's going to be different. It's going to be exciting. You should expect some bumps in the road, but Purdue being at home in state, I think they should be a little more comfortable. And I think they should be able to kind of take the home court advantage, especially getting fans in the arena rooting for them. I think that'd be a big one.
There aren't any buildings we haven't played in at some point. We've played obviously at Assembly Hall, we've played at Hinkle, we've played at Bankers Life, and maybe not Lucas Oil, but most of these buildings we've had a chance to play in. So there should definitely be some familiarity. We don't get to play at Mackey. That's not allowed, but we played in some of these other buildings.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, Jerry, thank you for all the contributions you give to college basketball, college football, on the work you've put in, the groundwork you put in, laid the work I'm trying to do now and people after me. So obviously I care about it. Purdue fans care about it. This is work that matters, you know what I mean? And definitely being able to answer all my questions I had. A lot of this was selfishly driven because I just was curious, but I thank you for taking the time. We'll always support what you do. You want to throw out your Twitter at all?
Oh, yeah. So if you want to find me on Twitter, it's at JP Palm CBS. P is my middle initial, so 2 P's, JP Palm CBS. And I try to answer as many questions as I can there.
There we go. And yeah, if you want to check us out, RaphealDavisBasketball.com. We have our basketball camps coming up this month, spring break in West Lafayette, 15th through the 17th, 22nd through the 24th. Then in Fort Wayne, April 5th through the 7th. Again, shout out to AJ's Burgers, Beef, and Beer. I can't wait to check it out this month in a few weeks. Field of 68 Podcast Network. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, Boiler Up with Rapheal Davis. I appreciate you guys listening.